The first light of dawn spreads gently over Pompeii, unveiling a city still wrapped in quiet shadows. Mount Vesuvius stands in the distance, its broad slopes peaceful and green, a silent guardian that has slept for generations beyond memory. In this early hour, a few roosters crow and thin columns of harsh smoke rise from rooftops. One by one, households stir from slumber. Daily life here begins early. Most residents wake at daybreak to make use of the cool morning hours. Inside humble quarters and grand villas alike, oil lamps are lit and faces are washed in basins. Since only the wealthiest homes have private wells, many people step into the streets with clay jugs and amphorae, heading for the nearest public fountain. In the soft golden light, a young woman draws water from a spout shaped like a bearded mask, filling her urn as the overflow trickles along the stone gutter. Beside her, an older slave balances 2 full buckets on a yoke across his shoulders, water sloshing at his sandaled feet. They exchange polite nods in lieu of words. The murmur of flowing water and the occasional splash echo faintly against the walls of nearby buildings. These fountains are lifelines of the city's morning rhythm, gathering places where a few neighbors might quietly trade greetings before the day properly begins. As the sun climbs, Pompeii slowly comes alive. The smell of baking bread starts to drift through the air from a corner bakery, warm and comforting. Inside the Pastrinum bakery, the baker and his assistants have been up since well before dawn. Near the glowing brick oven, a dusty millstone is turned ceaselessly by a mule trudging in circles, grinding grain into flour for the day's loaves. Deep circular ruts are worn into the bakery's basalt floor, silent testimony to years of this steady, monotonous work by man and beast. A slave boy scoops up fresh flour to mix dough, while the master baker rhythmically kneads a batch of yesterday's leaven into new wheat, his hands strong and patient. He shapes round loaves and marks each with a stamp before sliding them into the wood-fired oven. Soon, a rich, toasty aroma wafts out into the street. The first customers of the day arrive, a pair of children with small coins clutched in their fists, sent by their mother to fetch the morning bread. The baker smiles and dusts flour from his arms as he hands over 2 warm, dark-crusted loaves. Across the street, another vendor is arranging wicker baskets of fruit, figs, pears, and early grapes from the fertile farms outside the city. Pompeii's surrounding countryside is blessed with volcanic soil so rich that vineyards and orchards thrive in abundance. The bounty of the land finds its way into the forum markets each morning, carried in by farmers who started out before sunrise. Now, as gentle sunlight falls on the forum's marble columns, merchants set up their stalls and unwrap their goods. The stall keeper at a vegetable stand piles shiny eggplants and heads of leafy cabbage, a local favorite, in neat rows, while next to him, a fisherwoman from the coast quietly arranges her catch of salted fish on a slab. There is no loud clamor at this hour, just a low hum of activity and soft voices bargaining in Latin, the sound blending with the scuff of sandals on stone. By mid-morning, the streets of Pompeii are fully awake, yet the mood remains calm and unhurried. The main forum begins to echo with the footfalls of citizens coming to pray, shop, or socialize. Beneath a portico by the Temple of Jupiter, a schoolmaster has gathered a small cluster of boys for their lessons. The children's voices rise and fall in sing-song unison as they recite lines of Virgil's Aeneid, committing the epic poetry to heart. A few of the youngest struggle adorably with the words, prompting the teacher's gentle correction. Passers-by smile at the familiar scene. Education here often takes place in any convenient shady spot, and it's not unusual to see a tutor conducting class in the open air of the forum. Nearby, an elderly man seated on a wooden stool reads aloud the day's news bulletin, which is posted on the public notice board. His voice is soft and a bit quavery, blending into the background chatter. On a wall not far off, faded red letters advertise an upcoming festival, and another section of plaster bears the charcoal doodles of children at play, stick figures of gladiators and animals, sketched in idle moments. In the small plaza, a trio of Roman soldiers in travel-worn cloaks pause to water their horses at a trough. They converse in low tones, their bronze helmets tucked under their arms, adding a brief glint to the subdued morning light. A stray dog trots past them and settles in a sunny patch of road, lazily watching the world go by. Over by a barber shop, business has already started. Through the open doorway, one can see a local merchant getting a trim. The barber's razor flashes as it scrapes away stubble, and the two men chat amicably about the weather and yesterday's small happenings. Barber shops in Pompeii double as informal social hubs, a place to exchange gossip as well as to spruce up one's appearance. Outside, a slave sweeps the threshold, the broom's whispers on the ground keeping time with the low conversation within. Everything in this morning's scene is ordinary and peaceful. The entire city hums with a gentle productivity. Artisans open their workshops, grinding tools and melting bronze, yet any noise is muffled and distant. From a far-off alley comes the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer, ringing in a steady, drowsy rhythm. Elsewhere, a mule-drawn cart creaks along the stone-paved street, its iron-rimmed wheels clacking softly over the gaps and worn ruts. The cart driver calls out a mild warning as he navigates around pedestrians and the large stepping stones that allow people to cross the road without dipping their feet in the water runoff. Despite the activity, there is a sense of order, even a kind of calm, in how the day unfolds. Pompeii, though bustling with roughly 12,000 souls at this time, moves to a measured, unhurried cadence. Life here is prosperous and comfortable for many. The forum's edges are lined with shops and eateries that cater to residents and travelers alike, yet nothing feels rushed. As midday approaches, the subtle heat of the Italian summer begins to build, and a collective lull falls over the town. By noon, the sun hangs high and bright, and the day's warmth has settled over the city. Cicadas buzz steadily in the distance. This is the 7th hour by Roman counting. Time for a pause in the day's labors. One by one, traders and craftsmen shutter their stalls and workshops for a brief respite. The morning's lively marketplace grows quiet. In the forum, a few citizens lounge in whatever shade they can find, nibbling on simple midday fare. Crusts of bread, a bit of cheese, perhaps figs or olives shared from a cloth bundle. A group of laborers reclines on the steps of the basilica, passing around a skin of watered wine and chatting in low, languid voices. The mood is peaceful and drowsy. Under the awning of a small tavern on a side street, the innkeeper has posted today's menu on a wooden board to entice any hungry passerby. Painted in simple letters, it promises chicken, fish, ham, a surprisingly ample choice for a provincial town. Inside that dim, cool tavern room, a couple of patrons take their prandium, lunch, out of the heat. A bowl of lentil stew and bread on the table, and their conversation has hushed to a murmur as the midday lull deepens. Even the animals sense the slowing of the hour. Horses doze lightly in their stables, and a tabby cat curls up in a sunbeam beneath a bench, eyes half closed. In doorways and courtyards all across Pompeii, activity gives way to a gentle stillness as people surrender to the meridionaccio, the cherished early afternoon nap in these hot summer months. During this quiet interlude, the city feels suspended in time. The only prominent sound is the faint trickle of water from fountains and the rustle of a breeze that wanders through the nearly empty forum. An old bronze statue of an honored citizen stands in the sun-baked square, casting a short shadow at this hour. A pigeon perches on its head, cooing softly as if in agreement with the prevailing calm. Overhead, the sky is a brilliant blue, utterly clear save for a few wisps of cloud near the horizon. Mount Vesuvius looms under this sky to the northwest, silent as ever. In the hazy distance, the mountain's wooded crest and broad shoulders appear benign, almost benevolent, watching over the dozing town. There have been some oddities of late, subtle signs that only a few notice. Now and then, a gentle tremor might shiver through the ground, just enough to make the surface of a water basin quiver or set a hanging lamp to faintly sway on its chain. Indeed, minor earth tremors have been occurring for days, but they are so commonplace in Campania that no one finds them alarming. When a mild vibration passes underfoot this afternoon, a drowsy shopkeeper merely furrows his brow for a moment, glances at the ripples in his cup of wine, and then closes his eyes again. Earthquakes are a familiar memory here. It was only 17 years ago that a great quake shook Pompeii, cracking walls and toppling statues. Many buildings still bear the scars of that disaster. Here and there in the forum, one can see wooden scaffolding bracing a half-repaired temple facade, and stacks of bricks waiting to complete a reconstruction that has stretched on for years. Yet life has continued around these lingering projects. After the AD 62 earthquake, the city picked itself up and remained a favored resort town for Romans seeking relaxation. By now, frequent little tremors barely warrant a shrug. A couple of sparrows take flight from a red-tiled roof as the tremor passes, and a mule tethered near the fountain stamps his hoof uneasily. But soon enough, all is still again. In the silent streets, a few voices can be heard whispering about the capricious moods of the earth. Two matrons resting on a shaded porch fan themselves and trade superstitious reassurances. Perhaps the gods are merely testing their patience, or the giant beneath the mountain is turning in his sleep. Their words carry a note of quiet unease that quickly fades back into the summer quiet. After all, Mount Vesuvius has kept its peace for over a millennium. To Pompeians, the volcano is virtually just another mountain, its slopes green with vineyards and its peak often wreathed in harmless clouds. No one alive remembers it ever doing harm. So the people of Pompeii remain largely oblivious, continuing their routines under the bright midday sun. As the hottest part of the day passes, a delicate balance of light and shadow shifts over the city. Children who were earlier playing in the streets have sought shelter at home during the siesta, their laughter temporarily stilled. In one quiet courtyard, a little boy lies curled next to his mother on a straw mat, both fast asleep in the heavy warmth. Not far away, the linen curtains over a shop front flutter gently, drawn to keep out flies and heat while the shopkeeper naps inside. This tranquil pause in daily life is nearly palpable, a collective breath inward, a moment of communal rest. Only the faintest sounds punctuate the stillness. The distant call of a gull from the direction of the harbor, the scrape of a lone cartwheel as a latecomer vendor heads home, the soft snores of a neighbor drifting through an open window. Pompeii, at this moment, is a portrait of serenity, an ancient city caught in repose, unaware that it rests on the edge of an unfathomable destiny. The hours slide by softly, and gradually the spell of midday quiet is broken by the stirrings of renewed activity. When the sun has begun to slant westward and the intensity of the heat eases, Pompeii awakens from its siesta. By the 8th hour, early afternoon, the streets see people emerging once more. A refreshed energy returns, though the easy pace remains. Many residents now make their way to the public bathhouses, a cornerstone of Pompeian daily life. At least half a dozen bath complexes stand throughout the city, and this hour finds them filling with patrons of every social class. The grandest is the Stabian Baths, one of the oldest in town, where tall pillars and stuccoed walls greet the bathers. Through the entrance, there is a graceful transition from the bright, noisy street to the calm, steamy interior. Inside, echoes of gentle conversations and the sound of dripping water create a soothing, resonant, acoustical backdrop. Here in the tepidarium, warm room, citizens shed the dust of the day. A wealthy merchant sighs contentedly as a slave attendant scrapes sweat and oil from his back with a small bronze strigil. In the adjacent caldarium, hot room, clouds of steam billow around marble benches. A pair of old friends sit side by side, pores open and faces flushed from the moist heat, discussing local politics in hushed, lazy tones. Not far from them, a wiry young laborer pours a bucket of cool water over his head in relief, drawing a quick breath at the contrast of temperatures. The communal baths are a great social equalizer. Here nobles, merchants, freedmen, and sometimes even slaves bathe and mingle freely. All pay a modest fee. The baths are kept inexpensive so that nearly everyone can afford to attend. And in return, they gain not only cleanliness, but a few hours of leisure and company. In one corner of the bath complex, a trio of women share local gossip while lounging in a lukewarm pool, their voices and laughter echoing lightly off the painted walls. At the open-air palestra adjoining the baths, a few youths take advantage of the remaining daylight to exercise. Their figures dart in playful bouts of handball under the late afternoon sun, though their shouts are kept to a respectful quiet, mindful of those relaxing nearby. A small boy skitters across the mosaic floor, chasing after a runaway wooden ball, and a bather emerging from the dressing room catches it for him with a smile. All of these little interactions unfold in an unhurried tempo. One might spend several hours at the baths, soaking, steaming, cooling down, perhaps enjoying a massage. And no one is in a rush to leave. It is a cherished break before the evening meal. Outside the bathhouses, the city streets gradually resume their gentle bustle. Market stalls reopen in the cooler hours to catch any late trade. Along Via dell'Abbondanza, the main street, long shadows now stretch from the columns and doorways. Artisans return to their shops to finish the day's work. A potter sits at his wheel again, turning clay with practiced, unhurried motions, while next door a cloth dyer checks on the wool he left soaking in purple dye vats, the vivid color staining his hands. Freed from the heat's oppression, children dart out to play once more, giggling as they skip over the stepping stones or kick a rag ball down an alley. A little girl pauses by a fountain to splash her face, shrieking quietly at the water's cold shock and then breaking into a grin. In a residential lane, a housewife leans out of an upper-story window to shake out dust from a woven mat. Tiny motes dance in the sunbeam as the mat thumps against the sill. Across the way, the local fuller, the laundryman, has hung freshly cleaned tunics on a line, and they sway gently in the late daylight. There is a comfortable familiarity to these scenes. Pompeii is not a particularly large city, and many of its residents know each other by sight or name. As they go about their afternoon tasks, casual greetings are exchanged. A fruit seller waves to his neighbor, the carpenter, closing up his workshop, and a pair of women stop to chat about the price of olive oil this week. Over everything lies a sense of normalcy, the feeling that this day is much like any other and tomorrow will be the same. Under the lengthening shadows, the amphitheater at the edge of town stands quiet and nearly empty. Its grand stone arches that once welcomed tens of thousands of spectators now frame only stillness. Today is not a festival day, so no gladiatorial games disturb the peace. Only a few curious children wander near the gates, peeking inside at the vast arena where, on special occasions, the roar of the crowd and clash of steel would resound. On this ordinary afternoon, however, the amphitheater's silence is broken only by the cooing of doves nesting high in its rafters. A solitary groundskeeper sweeps debris from the stands, the soft swish of his broom on the stone steps lost in the expanse. It is hard to imagine that just 20 years ago, a riot here between Pompeian and Nucerian fans led to a decade-long ban on gladiator games. Those violent days feel distant now. For the citizens of Pompeii, the preference this afternoon is for tranquility over excitement. Any entertainments will be simple and homegrown, perhaps a musician strumming a lyre in a garden, or a few neighbors gathering to tell stories as evening comes on. In the far background, the green outline of Vesuvius is bathed in the honeyed light of late afternoon. Vineyard workers on its lower slopes lead their mules home after a day among the grapevines, descending toward the city with baskets full of ripe clusters. They too notice nothing amiss with the mountain under whose gaze they live. Life follows its age-old patterns, and the mountain keeps its own counsel. As the sun dips lower, bathing Pompeii in a soft golden glow, the activities of the day draw to a close. Sunset approaches, and with it comes the main meal of the day, cena, the evening dinner. In well-to-do homes, families recline on couches in their triclinium dining rooms, enjoying a leisurely feast in the open air or by lamplight. One patrician family gathers in a columned garden courtyard where a small fountain gurgles amidst lush greenery. They dine beneath trellised vines as the sky above turns shades of peach and rose. Servants quietly bring out platters of food, bowls of olives and chickpeas, fresh goat cheese drizzled with honey, hard-boiled eggs with herbs, and perhaps a roast duck or some fish from the morning market. For dessert, there might be slices of melon and little almond cakes. Laughter at the table is gentle and content. The topics of conversation kept light in the hazy summer dusk. In more modest households, the fare is simpler, but no less satisfying. Maybe lentil porridge or barley stew, flavored with garlic and greens, with bread to soak up the broth. Many Pompeians savor a cup of robust local wine with their meal, often diluted with water. The famous Pompeian garum, fermented fish sauce, might make an appearance as a seasoning, lending its rich aroma to the dishes. Across the city, you can catch the comforting sense of dinners being prepared, wood smoke and grilling fish, simmering lentils and baking barley bread. These aromas mingle in the cooling evening air, drifting through open doorways into the streets. The light fades gradually. In the public spaces, oil lamps are lit as twilight falls. A bronze lantern rattles softly as a town watchman carries it down the street, making his rounds. He pauses to light a few wall-mounted street lamps at the forum's corners, pools of flickering amber that offer just enough glow to guide late walkers. By now, however, few remain outdoors. Most citizens have withdrawn into the intimacy of their homes. Through one window, the warm glow of an oil lamp illuminates a family shrine in the corner of the atrium. A father can be seen helping his young son place a small offering of fruit before the household gods, the Lares, giving quiet thanks for another day's safety. In another dwelling, a tired blacksmith sits with his wife on a simple bench by their doorstep, sharing a loaf of bread and a jug of watered wine, enjoying the coolness that finally arrives after dusk. They speak little, listening instead to the nighttime sounds beginning to stir. Crickets chirp in the bushes, and somewhere far off a dog barks at nothing in particular. The evening star has appeared over the silhouette of Vesuvius, which now lies dark against the purple blue of the sky. The volcano's presence is humble at this hour. Just a broad shadow beyond the city, with a few lights twinkling on its slopes where countryside villas perch. For the people of Pompeii, it is easy to forget the mountain even exists. It has simply always been there, quiet and reliable, the backdrop to their lives. One by one, doors and shutters close as the night deepens. A cooler breeze sweeps in from the Bay of Naples, carrying with it the faint scent of the sea. In the nearly empty streets, a few late travelers hurry to find lodging, their sandaled footsteps echoing against the paving stones. From a tavern doorway spills a last sliver of light and a muted burst of laughter. Inside, a handful of patrons linger over cups of wine, swapping tales and drowsy voices. But soon even that establishment will dim its lamps. Night in Pompeii is generally not a time for revelry. With limited lighting and the ever-present risk of thieves in dark alleys, prudent folk prefer to retire early. So the city falls into a profound hush. The fountains that were busy in the morning now gurgle to themselves in the empty squares. The marble statues and temples of the Forum stand silent under the stars, their details softened by the darkness. Occasionally, the footsteps of the night watch patrol can be heard, or the scurry of a cat stalking a mouse along a wall. Otherwise, all is still. Within the homes, lamplight flickers behind closed shutters as families prepare for sleep. In a cramped upstairs room, a lamp's glow shines on the rough plaster wall, where the shadow of a mother can be seen gently rocking her baby to bed. In a grand house nearby, a wealthy matron arranges her hair for the night, pinning it loosely after her slaves have unbraided the elaborate style she wore during the day. She gazes for a moment at a fresco on her bedroom wall, a painted garden scene, and breathes in the lingering fragrance of the jasmine blossoms that twine around her pergola outside. Such small moments of reflection end the day quietly for many. Some say a final prayer to Vesta or Apollo, or whatever deity guards their hearth, and express hope that tomorrow will be as fortunate as today. Now the final vestiges of daylight have completely vanished. A blanket of stars spreads over Pompeii, and the moon, a thin crescent, casts a dim silver light across the rooftops. Mount Vesuvius is barely discernible now, an immense black shape merging with the night sky. The city at its feet lies in a state of tranquil slumber. Down at the port, boats gently knock against the wooden piers, and the water of the bay glints with faint starlight. All around is a sense of deep peace and drowsiness. In their beds, the people of Pompeii drift into dreams, the events of the ordinary day playing through their minds in softened form. A baker's wife, asleep on her cot, still smells the bread and hears the grind of the millstone in her memory. A child twitches his legs as he dreams of running through the Forum chasing a ball. The old schoolmaster snores under the weight of an extra blanket, perhaps murmuring a Latin verse even in his sleep. Nothing extraordinary disturbs this summer night. The quiet is profound, as if the city itself is exhausted and pleased with the day's labors. If the ground trembles ever so slightly once more in the small hours, hardly anyone feels it in their sleep. It is no more than a faint whisper in the earth, as gentle as a rocking cradle. In the pre-dawn darkness, a dog lying in the street lifts its head at some distant rumble, ears pricked in curiosity. But after a moment, it rests its muzzle back on its paws and closes its eyes again. The stars continue their slow wheel overhead, and the night wears on without incident. Pompeii slumbers on, unaware of any looming fate, cradled in the warm summer air and the deceptive permanence of routine. And so, under the indifferent gaze of the moon and stars, the ancient city lies peacefully. The only sounds are the soft chorus of nighttime insects and the occasional call of an owl from the direction of the darkened countryside. Time itself seems to slow, stretching this moment of calm. The people of Pompeii, merchants and slaves, children and soldiers, nobles and laborers, all sleep side by side in the embrace of their beloved town, as they have on countless nights before. The streets that were full of life by day are now empty and at rest, awaiting the first light of a new morning. In a few hours, the cycle will begin again. The baker will stoke his fires, the farmers will lead in their produce, the forum will fill with voices. Life will continue its familiar course as the mountain watches silently. For now, in this fragile pause before dawn, everything is still, everything is ordinary. The city of Pompeii dreams in the darkness, peaceful, eternal, and unaware. The night passes quietly, and then, little by little, morning returns. Doors open again, footsteps soften across the stones, and ordinary routines try to resume, as if nothing could ever truly change. And yet, the air feels different, not louder, not violent, just unfamiliar, as though the sky is holding something back. The daylight that should have felt steady begins to fade, far earlier than it should. A soft shadow creeps across the bustling Roman town, as if dusk has arrived early. In a modest bakery on a side street, a baker pauses, kneading his dough, and steps to the doorway. Flour dusts his hands as he looks up at the sky, puzzled. Above, Mount Vesuvius has unfurled a great dark cloud that slowly spreads across the sunlit blue, turning day into a strange twilight. There is no thunderclap, no immediate panic, just a growing, uncanny hush. People emerge onto their thresholds and narrow streets, shielding their eyes to study the sky. The sunlight weakens to a copper glow, then to gray. Within minutes, the daylight has vanished behind ash and dust, plunging Pompeii into an eerie semi-darkness. It is as though time itself is slowing, the bustling sounds of the city giving way to a confused quiet. In the sudden dim, everyday life hesitates. The baker wipes his brow with a flowery cloth, uncertain whether to light a lamp or simply wait. Down the lane, a young mother stands in her doorway, a broom in hand from her morning chores. She squints at the darkening sky with worry, but stays calm, gently calling her little boy to come inside. The child, who had been playing with a toy in the dust of the courtyard, toddles over and wraps small fingers around his mother's hand. Across the way, an elderly man sits by an open window, roused from a light nap by the change in light. He peers upward, recalling old tales of sudden summer storms, but the air is oddly still. There is no breeze, no bird song. Only a fine powder begins to drift down from the sky, settling on rooftops and in the curls of the child's hair. A delicate gray ash begins to fall, at first just a few flakes swirling like out-of-season snow. The baker holds out his palm and watches the pale dust gather in his lifelines. It is warm and dry, not cold like snow or wet like rain. All across Pompeii, people glance at this strange volcanic ash as it descends silently onto the red tiles of roofs in the mosaicked courtyards. At the baker's feet, a light sprinkling powders the ground, softening the outline of a dropped loaf. He quietly ducks back inside and closes the wooden shutters of his shop window, but he does not bar the door. Curiosity overcomes fear, and he continues to watch through the gaps. In the glow of a small oil lamp, motes of ash float in, kissing the counter and cooling loaves. It is as if the sky itself is crumbling gently over the town. Out in the street, the gentle patter of ash becomes the only sound. The usual afternoon calls of vendors and the laughter of children playing have faded away. A few neighbors exchange hushed words on their doorsteps, marveling at the ashen snowfall. The mother pulls her boy close and retreats indoors, softly shutting their door against the dusty breeze. Inside their humble home, dim light filters through the atrium opening as ash begins to accumulate there. The little boy presses his face to the window, great in silence, watching the gray flakes pile on the sill. He giggles quietly, perhaps thinking this is a game or a strange new kind of rain. His mother gently strokes his hair, her heart heavy with unspoken concern. Yet her face remains calm for the child's sake. In a corner of the same house, the grandmother, who had been resting on a low couch, rises and helps secure the shutters. She lays a reassuring hand on her daughter's shoulder. No one speaks. Words feel unnecessary in this moment. They all understand something extraordinary is happening, though none can name it. Hour by hour, the ashfall intensifies, yet it remains strangely gentle in its descent. The flakes are turning thicker now, mixed with tiny pebbles of pumice that click softly as they land on clay tiles. From time to time, a distant rumble can be felt through the ground, a reminder that this is not a winter snowfall, but the breath of a living mountain. Still, there are no screams, no chaos in the streets. Many residents have now taken shelter inside their homes, as one would during a heavy rainstorm. A few determined souls venture onto their roofs with brooms and shovels, attempting to sweep away the accumulating ash. One man carefully clears the ash from his roof over and over, stubbornly fighting this strange gray rain. But the ash falls faster than it can be cleared, and bit by bit it blankets every surface. The efforts are quiet and futile, and eventually even these tasks are abandoned. Tools are set down and people retreat to safety, conceding to the gentle but relentless fall of volcanic ash. By evening, Pompeii is cloaked in a thick shroud of ash. What was once a bustling town has fallen unnaturally quiet. The sky, which grew dark at midday, is now completely black, a starless, moonless canopy pressing down. In the streets, ankle-deep drifts of ash hush the sound of footsteps to nothing. A bronze oil lamp left hanging on a porch barely glows. Its light is choked by the particles in the air. Houses that stood bright and warm at noon are now shadows with flickers of lantern light behind closed shutters. The gentle sloping roofs are sagging under the weight of ash that is piled upon them. Occasionally, there is a muffled crunch as a roof beam gives way in a deserted stable or shed. These sounds are distant and isolated, heard by no one in particular, just part of the landscape of quiet destruction. In the bakery, the baker sits on a stool by the brick oven. He has done all he can. The last batch of bread was pulled out moments before the sky went dark. The round loaves of pannies sit cooling on the counter, forgotten. A thin layer of ash has crept in under the door, dusting the floor like a silvery carpet. The baker's apron, once white, is now the color of stone from the falling ash. He listens to the soft tap of pumice pebbles on the roof, each tap slower than the last as the pile above grows thicker. Across the room, a few loaves remain in the oven, left to overbake and blacken as he tended to more urgent matters. The warm, yeasty smell of bread has faded, replaced by a dry, chalky scent of hot ash. Still, the baker feels no panic, only a deep weariness and disbelief. He murmurs a reassuring wish under his breath, perhaps a hope that this will pass by morning, then lapses into quiet. In the corner of his bakery, the oven's gentle heat flickers. He decides to leave his door slightly ajar in case any neighbor needs shelter from the falling debris. Through that narrow crack in the door, only darkness peers back. In the family home, the silence deepens. The child has fallen asleep early, curled up against his mother's side on a straw mat. The mother sits upright, her arm around her little one, listening to the dull hush outside. Each time she brushes a bit of ash from the child's face, more seems to drift in through the tiny gaps in the doorframe. She has wetted a cloth and placed it over the boy's mouth, just in case. A simple, instinctual act of protection. The grandmother kneels in prayer by the hearth, lips moving silently, asking the household gods for calm and safety. Her prayers are whispers that only she can hear, swallowed by the perfect quiet that has settled over the street. From time to time, a distant thud can be felt as parts of buildings succumb to the weight of ash and collapse. But these events seem far away, almost muffled by the heavy air. Inside these walls, it feels as if the very sound in the world has been muted. Stillness reigns. Outside, the narrow lanes and courtyards of Pompeii lie under a soft gray blanket. The fountains run thin, their basins choking with ash. A stray dog lies curled up under an archway, covered in dust, not whimpering, just eerily still. The familiar silhouettes of carts and market stalls are disappearing under mounds of volcanic ash and pumice. Here and there, a faint glow shines from a crack in a shutter or a doorway. But these lights are few. One by one, they wink out as oil lamps burn dry or are extinguished to conserve air. With each passing hour, Vesuvius' ashfall buries the city more deeply, concealing everything and everyone beneath it. Pompeii is becoming a quiet, colorless silhouette of itself. Midnight passes with little notice. There is no clock chiming the hour, only the continued monotonous drift of ash and the occasional tremble of the ground. In their homes, the people of Pompeii remain huddled and quiet. Some have fallen into an uneasy sleep. Others sit awake, keeping vigil by a dying lamp. In the bakery, the baker finally closes his eyes, his back against the cool stone wall of his shop. He clutches a small wooden figurine of a household god in his ash-covered hands, seeking comfort in his familiar shape. The air is growing harder to breathe, warm and thick with dust, but he breathes slowly and deliberately. In the darkness, he imagines the first light of dawn and hopes to see it. In the family's house, the mother cradles her child, who sleeps soundly despite the grim reality outside. The grandmother has moved to sit beside them, wrapping a shawl around the trio. She speaks softly about mundane things, a recipe for lentil soup, a memory of a sunny market day, anything to fill the silence with a sense of normalcy. Her voice remains calm and soothing. The mother nods and smiles faintly at the reminiscences, even as tears quietly trace paths through the ash on her cheeks. They share a skin of water, passing it between them in the dark, each encouraging the others to drink first. In this still moment, time seems to stretch. Minutes feel like hours. There is no sense of urgency anymore, only a gentle waiting, as if the whole city is holding its breath. Shortly before the first light of what should be dawn, Pompeii takes its final breath. A quiet wave of warmth sweeps through the town, invisible and silent. It is the last surge of Vesuvius' fury, but it comes with no roar, no warning. In an instant, it stills every living thing where they sit or stand. The baker, halfway between sleep and waking, feels a brief warmth and then knows no more. The mother, mid-whisper to her child, falls quiet, her arm still protectively around her little one. The old grandmother's prayer ceases on her lips, her lined face peaceful in the darkness. All over Pompeii, time freezes at this final moment. The entire city falls silent, as if it has fallen into a deep, dreamless sleep. There is no pain, no sound, just an overwhelming, absolute stillness. When the sun finally rises beyond the horizon, its light cannot reach the streets of Pompeii. The city is entombed in heavy ash and pumice, buried under a blanket dozens of feet thick in some places. Houses and temples, baths and bakeries, all lie hidden beneath a gray, undulating landscape where a town once bustled. Drifts of ash have sealed every door and filled every open window. In the new morning, not a single roof or tree is visible. Only a soft, ashen plain remains. Here and there, beneath collapsed roofs, lie the forms of Pompeii's people in the exact poses they held at that final heartbeat of night. They are encased in ash, their faces calm, their bodies preserved by the powdery tomb that engulfed them. A baker sits against his oven, head bowed as if in rest. A mother holds her child in a final embrace, both forms lightly covered in gray. Families lie together as if sleeping. These people do not stir or speak. They have become like statues in the ash, caught in the last moment they were alive. In the utter quiet of the buried city, time has stopped. Pompeii is frozen in an eternal moment, its inhabitants transformed into peaceful silhouettes beneath the ash. The only movement comes as fine dust occasionally shifts, settling into the crevices of this newly formed stone-like cityscape. For centuries, Pompeii remains lost to the world, a city turned to stone under the hardened ash. Days, years, and generations pass overhead, unaware of the silent town lying below the ground. The people of Pompeii, in their final poses of quiet acceptance, sleep beneath the ash as the world above moves on. Emperors rise and fall, new cities are built nearby, grass and wildflowers eventually blanket the mound that covers the forgotten town. Pompeii is forgotten, its story waiting in silence. The preservation is uncanny. The ash that brought darkness also guarded the city's memories. Bread still sits in ovens where bakers left it. Tables remain set with bowls and cups. Footprints of the fleeing halt suddenly fixed in hardened earth. All is exactly as it was in that last breathless moment. The city holds its collective breath for ages. Nearly 1,700 years later, a new morning comes for Pompeii. In the 18th century, explorers and diggers slowly peel back the layers of ash, not quite knowing what they will find. What they discover is a world suspended in time. As shovels carefully scrape away the compacted ash, sunlight touches mosaics and wall paintings that haven't seen daylight since that fateful day. Statues of people emerge, not marble statues, but the gap-molded shapes of the Pompeian people themselves. Their ashes turn to casts that capture their final moments. These figures, appearing almost as stone ghosts, astonish the excavators. They find the baker in his shop, his oven full of carbonized loaves exactly where he left them. They find families in their homes, still huddled together, their features outlined by the hardened ash. The city streets reappear, paved and intact, lined with silent storefronts and houses. Pompeii opens its eyes after a long night. The air that day in 1748 is fresh and warm, carrying the sound of the archaeologists' excited whispers. But within the newly uncovered rooms and streets, a hallowed quiet persists. The excavators step softly, as though walking in a sacred place where people are sleeping. And, in a sense, they are. The people of Pompeii, the baker, the family, the child, the elders, have been asleep in their stone cocoon of ash for almost 2 millennia. Now they are seen again, but they do not wake. Their faces and poses tell a story without words. In that peaceful silence, modern visitors feel the weight of time paused. Pompeii, the city that turned to stone, now teaches its lesson in hushed tones. The final moments of ordinary people are laid bare, not in chaos or terror, but in gentle repose. In the ruins, one can almost hear the echo of that profound silence from the day everything stopped. There is respectful quiet among those who walk these roads again. Even the birds seem to sing softly here. The city, once buried in darkness, is now dappled with sunlight, yet it remains a place of stillness and reflection. The tale of Pompeii ends not with fire and fury, but with a contemplative hush. Time paused here on an ordinary day, and in this pause there is a strange peace. The narrative of Pompeii dissolves softly as we linger on this final image. A town caught in a quiet moment, its people gently turned to ash and stone, at peace in their last embrace of life. The sky is calm over Vesuvius now, the streets are calm, and the voices of Pompeii are quiet. In this silence, their story lives on, soft, reflective, and eternal. Nothing more needs to be said. The city and its people rest, and silence falls.